Hey guys, what's up? So we've got one final card which was shown in the manga for Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. I know it's been quite a long time considering that we have just finished frames that are actually on the series after that called Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, but the manga has a tendency of being a little bit behind the anime, or they kind of go in a bit of a different direction. This card is called DDD Divine Zero King Rage. It's a level 10 Dark Fiend Pendulum effect monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. And unusually, it has a pendulum scale of 0. Why I would say this is quite unusual is most pendulum scales are between 1 and, say, 10. Usually at most. Most typically don't go above 8 unless you've got one of these kind of unusual cards. Or because sometimes when they're like a scale of 8, they might have an effect which can increase their scales or decrease accordingly based on their pendulum effect. But in this is just a straight flat 0. Its pendulum effect is if you would take effect damage, you take no damage. If you normal summon one level 5 or higher DD monster, you can do it without tributing. You can only use each effect of Pendulum Effect of Go DDD Divine Zero King Rage. Base each. Oh, it's only once, so that's it. It's not even a once per turn. So that's the effect damage thing isn't really that useful. You might have random times where it could be okay. The normal summoning of a higher level DD monster without tributing might be the more useful effect, considering you have a few out there who have decent effects attached to them. This at least gives you some utility. The monster effect is when this card declares an attack. If your opponent's life points are 4,000 or less, you can make this card gain attack equal to your opponent's life points until the end of this turn. It cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no damage from battles involving this card. You can tribute one other monster to apply one of these effects until the end of this turn. This card can attack directly. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in the spell and trap zones, or your opponent cannot activate card effects in their hand or graveyard. So, with the monster effect, it reminds me a little of, Mech Lord Emperor Grinnell. When that's summoned, it basically becomes half your opponent's life points. The difference is this is whenever this card declares an attack. To that extent, I'd say that's worse than Grinnell, because it's the longer this card is on the field, the longer it takes for you to kind of beat your opponent. Basically, the weaker this card becomes. I would say it's not so bad from the point of view that this cannot be destroyed by battle. So if your opponent is on quite a low life points, maybe less than 2,000, it's not going to be to your detriment. This card can stick around, no matter how many times your opponent tries to attack into it. And also it has kind of like a built-in Wabuku effect to prevent itself from... to prevent you from taking battle damage. This is quite useful. You have cards such as Scab Scar Knight, and there are a couple of other monsters like the Maiden in Love, which have effects which happen when they get attacked. However, their disadvantage is usually if they're put into defense mode, and they're targeted for an attack, they get destroyed, or you have to keep them in attack mode to gain their effects. So they're susceptible for you to take battle damage that way. This kind of, it being a level 10, needs to kind of show a little bit more strength to it. The first effect is quite useful. In a sense, it's a little bit like there is one of the Earthbound Immortals, Wirashka, and the bird one, which is used by Rex Goodwin. That one can attack your opponent directly and basically, deal with them that way. This can do the same, and since it's tied to your opponent's life points, if you can successfully attack, you won the game. The second effect is actually better if you've got an existing board of cards and your opponent, say, running a very heavy spell and trap based deck or a more defensive deck. That is where this second effect comes in to kind of save you. If you can use this second effect, you could potentially win just by kind of overwhelming your opponents with your own monsters. Also, the tributing of another monster might not be so big of an issue if you can, because the DDD archetype can special summon monsters very easily by pendulum summoning them from the extra deck, or just bringing out monsters using effects from the graveyard. The third effect could be useful in decks which rely on quite strong monsters. Well, if your opponent is running very high attack, lots of effects, so most people tend to run graveyard effects and hand traps. This could be useful if you don't see the benefit of either of the other two effects. This is always a good idea, just as a final option if you need to. What do you guys think of this card as being like the final card within the series? Do you think this is powerful enough? Do you think this could be run effectively within a DD deck? My personal opinions of this are, this is quite useful. The deck can run quite effectively. There's so much support for it as it is, so I don't see any problems. The slight problem I have is to do with this card potentially being negated. If you can negate this card, it's very easy to run over it. So that's where the weakness lies. It having no existing attack and defense points for itself means it's very susceptible to effect negation. And there are people who run things such as Battle Fader. I know Breakthrough Skill isn't that useful or seeing that much play at the moment, but you often have like a monster version of that, which could kind of make this card a dead card. Leave your comments down below, whatever you think. Like the video. Remember, the more likes or even dislikes, any kind of engagement helps to support the channel, helps to kind of promote the channel to YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe, that also helps to see how effective I'm being with you guys as well.